All right, we are recording. So I'm here with a lovely client where we met. I was just thinking, I think it was last December.
That was when we started working, yeah.
So it was like 10 months because it's at the end of October right now of 2024 as we're recording this. And it's been quite the journey. And you had asked to do a little interview because I think your story is really important. It's unusual, but other people have gone through something similar with this combination of chronic pain and autoimmune conditions and trying to heal your body in a really natural way. So to give people just a little bit of context, you originally came to me because of the knee pain, and it was a meniscus injury. I want to say it was bilateral on your imaging, but the right was always.
I don't know what that means, but there were two tears, and they were complex, like two complex bad meniscus tears that the orthopedic surgeon was like, you absolutely 100% need surgery.
Was it just on the right or also left?
Yeah. They didn't do my left, so I don't know.
So it's the right. So the two complex tears on the right. And I remember you saying that, you know, the surgeon told me I needed surgery. I was like, I don't know. And we had gone back and forth in messaging. And I believe we had kind of considered doing this work as a form of prehab. So what you do before you're going into surgery. And we kind of went in with that notion. And then I wasn't convinced you need surgery because I've seen that happen before. You get in, you start doing the work. And then again, I've always said, like, I want to talk to the surgeon and say, hey, look, thank God for surgeons, but I don't think it's always necessary. So if you want to provide a little bit more context about where you were back then in December in terms of your pain, and like we talked about, you had a lot of other complications going on health-wise.
Yeah. So at that point, when I reached out to you, I hadn't been able to walk for about 6 months. Like I was limping everywhere. I was limping so much that someone came up to me in the grocery store and was like, do you want a wheelchair? And I was like, no, but it was so bad. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So I've had that for at least a couple years. And so I knew that that was playing a part. I wasn't on medication at that time. And when I reached out to you, you had been posting. So I had gone to see the surgeon because I wasn't convinced that the pain in my right knee was like super ballooned, swollen. And I wasn't convinced that it was only the RA that was causing the knee pain. And I wanted to find out if it was anything else. And so I got an MRI. The MRI showed 2 meniscus tears. The surgeon was like, you definitely need surgery. And I was like, you think physical therapy? Like, do you think it's only the RA? And he was like, no, if anything was going to work, it would have worked by now. And you need surgery. And he actually offered it to me that week. Because like I live in Canada now. We were in the States and I was going to pay out of pocket for this surgery because I thought I needed it immediately. And he was like, we had a flight home that week. And he was like, if you want, we can do it. Like, I can get you in this week. You can just get on the plane and like the next day and go back home. And I was like, this seems like I really want it done because I want to be out of pain, but this seems very fast for me. And it was going to be like 10 grand or something. So I was like, I don't know. Let me just go home and just kind of see. I was not going to reach out to you. I only reached out to you because you were doing like a group thing.
Rebuilding body.
We've been posting about it. And I was like, well, I seem to be in this boat of chronic pain now. And maybe that would be good for me in a few months once I have had the surgery. So I reached out to you and I was like, hey, do you think this would be good for me like later after I do the surgery? And you were like, kind of like, are you sure you need surgery? Or like, do you? And I was like, no, I definitely need surgery. I was like, she's not right. She doesn't know. I need surgery. And I was like, and then you mentioned that you could do like a pre-op preparation. And I was like, all right, it can't hurt. I absolutely did not think it was going to work at all. I was like, I just want to be like very clear for everyone. Like, I like reaching out to you. I was like, I'll reach out, but like, I know this isn't going to work. But like, she says maybe it'll help the surgery go better. So like, I guess I'll like try that. And then we did the session. And while of course I like you and I like, we get along well, you gave me the exercises and they were like, to me, I was like, oh, this is so like subtle and boring, and like it was like flexing my quad, because my quad, like my knee couldn't even straighten. Like I couldn't even sit on the ground. Remember, my knee was so bent up, I had to put like pillows under it.
Yep.
And that's how I was functioning. Like sitting on the
Yep.
couch, I had to put like pillows under my knee. Like I couldn't even. And so you were having me like start to straighten it. And these exercises to me felt like, this is so boring and it's not going to do anything. And then it started to pretty quickly do so. I did them every day at the beginning.
Yep.
I did them like every day. And I remember sitting there and being like with myself, like, if you can start here, you could start anywhere. Like you have to start at the like extreme beginning
Mm-hmm.
of like getting your quad to work again, and like just and there was a lot of emotion for me with that, because it was just like, it was a big ego blow, and just like it was hard to feel like I'm now in such a situation where I like can't even sit on the floor with my knee straight, and like I can't even like flex my quad, like it's not really responding. So yeah, and then it started to work. I feel like it was really fast. I don't remember the exact timeline.
Yeah, because you were extremely diligent. So I just want to point that out, is that the work is kind of boring,
Yeah.
right? Because it almost looks so basic, but it's really you brought a
I'll
lot of
say it's not
intention.
boring now.
Oh,
I have a lot of what?
I was going to say you brought a lot of intention to it too, right? There's a lot of like the things you were able to do. You know what to pay attention to, and you're really focused on that, right? You weren't like going through the motions, which is an important part of what you did really well. It's not boring now. Does it feel like it's?
Well, I mean, like there's still the part. So for everyone's context, like years ago, I had power lifted and I had like
Yep.
done these like heavy weights, and so but now, so now like we're doing more stuff in the gym, like planks where I'm like kneeling, different kinds of things that are more like real exercises. So yeah, I don't think it's boring now, because I think like, of course, there's still a part of me that's like, I would love to be able to like put 200 pounds on a barbell and do a squat. Like that would feel fun. And it's like, will I ever be able to do that again? But I enjoy, like, I feel like I can go to the gym now. I have a lot of like joy actually in what we can do now. And like the fact that I'm able to do it, and looking back at where we began and just being like, wow, like I've come very far, and we've had a lot of like peaks and valleys.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of humility that comes with it too. Like you're saying, especially when you're coming from the powerlifting background, you learn from one of my teachers, Mark Rupito, right? Back in the day, where like he's super like, let's just get it done. I think he was the one that was like, I don't care how you pronounce your name. Like he's very much like that attitude. So you came from a very different background in the fitness world. Yeah, to kind of go all the way back to the beginning, so to speak, where we're working on range of motion of the knee. But the thing is I think also you were able to experience some buy-in a little bit after getting results in 2 weeks. You're like, okay, the thing is working. This makes sense. It's kind of tedious. It's kind of boring, but it works. And then you started to see the plan, right? Like we started to layer that. Okay, now we're getting that extension. We can measure the extension, right? We were using kind of the pillows to measure it, so we could see that objective progress. And now, yeah, you're deadlifting a pair of 40 pounds, so 80-pound deadlifts. We're incorporating back into some loaded squats. And the thing is that the complications here too is that, so obviously you don't need the surgery, you're not going in for surgery, but then you've got the chronic illness as well, the autoimmune, and dealing with all of that. And that can be really tricky. So we've also been working on your capacity, which is a whole nother thing when you're saying like up and down, up and down. So I'd love if you spoke a little bit more about what that's been like, because we've got the shoulder. We worked on the shoulder as well. So we worked on like the knee, and then we migrated towards the shoulder pain. And then there's the elbow and the wrist that you've been working on through dietary changes and medication.
Yeah. What do you want? You want me to talk about those things?
Yeah, a little bit of, because the thing is like movement is really important. And that was especially for the knee. And then there's also, when it comes to really healing the body, there are these other factors. And what worked for you might not work for somebody else.
Yeah.
Like I told you, I have one client, she's on 100% fruit diet. You're on 100% very different diet than she is, right? So it depends on the individual. I'm always like, hey, you do what you want to do. If this feels right for you, well, let's try it. So if you want to talk a little bit about your relationship with your RA, what you've been trying as well to help you with the other complex pain.
Yeah. So, yeah, and I'll just say it, like when I came to you, it was like, what do I do about my knee? Because I'm gonna get surgery on my knee. Like, but then once I started seeing improvements in my knee, it was like, also, by the way, I've had impingement in my shoulder for like 5 years, and like, yeah, all of a sudden I can't straighten my elbow anymore. There's RA in my elbow, and like my wrist really hurt. I don't even. So it was like it became about my whole body, and yeah. So RA wise, I resisted doing any form of meds until about May of 2024. Because what happened was my dad came to visit, and even though I love my dad, it was a great visit, it was stressful for me at the time, and like my knee flared up again. And right before that, we had gotten to the point without meds where like I could go on hikes.
Oh yeah, that's right. You were doing a lot of steps. You were going up and down stairs. I forgot all of that other in between stuff, but you're right.
I was like going on hikes. I was like walking on an incline on the treadmill. I was like, wow.
You were squatting, like you just randomly would squat on the beach and like got down on the ground. You were able to
squat. I could like sit down in a squat, which I thought was like never gonna be possible. That's true. So we did all that without any meds, and then my dad, and obviously I was still in pain like from the RA that whole time, but then yeah, my knee flared up again, and I was like, okay, this is like a lot for me. Maybe I should take the medication. Long story short, I took 3 different meds for like a month, and then I stopped the 2, but I kept the one, which is the prednisone, the steroid. Because the prednisone, I'm almost off the prednisone right now. I have like 4 more days and I'm off everything. But the prednisone was a godsend, honest. Like I'm so glad I did that, because I had to go through this process of like accepting the medication and the like maybe like it's okay to take the meds, maybe this will be my life, maybe that's okay, like maybe that was an important step for me, was like the acceptance of that. And the prednisone made me be able to walk again. So I was like, wow. And for like 2 weeks, I was like, wow. I'm like, it didn't make everything go away at all, but it probably gave me like a 50% reduction in pain, and it made me able to move and I could do stuff. And I was like, wow, I forgot what it feels like because before I was in so much pain all the time that just like getting out of bed was like exhausting.
Yeah. And RA is really tricky. I mean, and I like that you noted the correlation between the stress, right? Because there are all the movement things we can do, but then autoimmune conditions, especially like you were flaring up quite a bit, with a lot of other things that were going on in your life. So yeah, when you got on that pred, because then we talked about it gives you some more capacity to be able to do things, to be able to heal and have more energy to dedicate towards other protocols and things like that. And that's so important. Otherwise, you're always like in a total survival mode.
Yeah. So what it really did, I think now, is it gave me the energy to do more research and like figure out what I was going to do. Because at first I was like, I'll just take the meds forever. But I very quickly learned that like it wasn't going to be the solution I thought it was. Like I was like, fine, I'll talk to the rheumatologist. I'll do what she says. Then it was like, well, she was like, these other meds probably aren't going to work. So maybe you do that for like 4 months. And then you take this other, like maybe then we'll put you on a biologic. And then like that might take some months to work. And we'll just like see, like it was all very like, and I was like, well, I'm in a lot of pain now. And she was like, well, and I was like, what? This is like, I thought that the doctor was going to be like the solution, but I was like, I don't know. I know people like cycle through meds and they find one that works, but then they go years and then it doesn't work anymore. And I was like, this doesn't work for me. I'm not this type of person. Like, I just don't. So I started researching and I ended up, I mean, it's been like a whole journey. Obviously, it's like, it could take so long to tell because I feel like there's there's emotional components, there's spiritual components, like there's so many pieces, but ultimately I feel like a major belief that I changed at some point in the summer, in June maybe, or July, was like, I think I had this belief that I was doing life wrong because the RA had happened to me.
Oh,
and so I was just like,
a big one.
so I was like, and yeah, through a series of different things, I had this like big realization where I was like, oh, this is just life. I'm not doing life wrong. This is just like part of my life path. And when I came into like an acceptance of that, it was like I found things one after another, after like people, and I also had the belief that there was no one who could help me, which I told you
that's a super important one.
Well, I have told you before, you actually, like, finding you and working with you really helped me with this, because even though for the first half of the year with the RA stuff, I was like, I've tried working with different people, like, for the RA, it hasn't helped. Like, there's no one who can help me. And I was like, but I did find Jess with the movement, and she's been able to help me. So, like, there has been someone who's been able to help this part.
Yep.
And so, like, there must be people. And so I kind of had this day where I was like, maybe, like, this like maybe came in, and I was like, maybe there is someone, like, maybe there is a way out, like, maybe there's something.
That's huge. That's hope, right? Because that's what's so stressful and also sometimes traumatic. If like you got a chronic illness and you start to lose hope, like nobody can help me, I'm doing this alone. It's extremely isolating, frustrating, unpredictable to have the hope of like, okay, I can find professionals, I can seek them out, you know. And I remember we talked about being discerning. I'm always talking to clients about be discerning. Just this morning is telling a client with a chiropractor, I'm like, ask him questions, ask him why he's doing things, be discerning, don't just trust the first person. And you have been a great example of that with your rheumatologist.
They teach you, I mean, I think it's really sad how they instill this sense of helplessness. Like, I don't know that they mean to do it. I think they believe that that's the case, but like, I have now found hundreds of people, like podcasts, all these different things of people who have healed their autoimmune stuff.
Yep.
So like, and I didn't know those things back in June. I knew like some anecdotes of like, oh, there's this one person who says this one crazy thing, but I hadn't found like all of the people with all of their like, when you hear so many, there starts to become this point where I feel like now the question for me is not like, can it be healed? Obviously it can. People have done it. I've talked to them. Like, the question more is like, can I do it? Like, will it work? Will I figure out what's going to work for me? But yeah, I've lost track of where we began.
Well, and I was just asking you in the beginning to describe kind of your relationship to the RA and your medication.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I didn't quite know that when you shared like, oh, I thought I was doing life wrong. You know, we talked about possible sources of it, but that is such a huge one. People have a chronic illness, especially if they're aware of the connections between, say, trauma and stress and all these sort of things. There can be, reminds me of the book that over there on my bookshelf, When the Body Says No, right? And then we can start to internalize and blame ourselves like, I caused this. That's extremely stressful to have that belief. So that's huge that you're like, you know what, this is just part of it. We don't exactly know the root cause of certain autoimmune diseases. We just try to track patterns and work with symptoms. And so you started doing a couple of different things too. You started seeking out a lot of these stories, right, to help give you belief. I always say that with my people with chronic pain, if you don't believe you can get relief, read stories and case studies of people who have, like, try to see yourself in other people, because that can start the wheels turning. Oh, well, they did it. So now it's just, okay, it's possible, but can it be for me, right? And then that's a whole other trajectory. So you also made some pretty radical nutritional changes, but I strongly believe that nutrition can be connected to inflammation in the body. So you have been doing lots of lamb. Only, I think you introduced steak recently, but you're doing the all meat diet because there's more people talking about the carnivore diet, and I just wanted to showcase the carnivore diet in a way that, yes, it is extreme. Yes, you're doing for therapeutic purposes, not just for the rest of your life necessarily.
Yeah.
But kind of what that's been like for you to be on the lamb diet?
Yeah. So, like working with you, I was resistant to carnivore too for like a year. I had like, I'd known of anyone who had healed their autoimmune stuff doing carnivore, but I was like, that's crazy. I was eating pretty high carb and thought that that was like how you heal your metabolism. So I was just like, I don't know, that's nuts. And like, I thought, I was like, if I do carnivore, I'll be miserable, I'll be starving.
Yep.
My metabolism will just go down the tank. Like, I just thought like everything would crash. But I got desperate enough because that was so the prednisone for like 2 weeks, I was like, I'm on cloud 9, everything's gonna be great. And then I had to start tapering because you can't be on that high of a dose of prednisone for that long. And as soon as I started tapering, the pain started to come back. And I remember, and what I keep reminding myself of now is that like there was a point in time right before I started carnivore, I had tapered down to, I was at 17 and a half. And the transition from 20 to 17 and a half milligrams of prednisone made me not want to walk. Like it made me like I was suddenly in so much more pain. I remember we were at my my in-laws' house and like going down their steps, like we went for a walk with them and I was like, my knee was hurting, like just stuff was like coming up. And I was like, oh my God, if this is how I feel at 17 and a half, like I have to do something. Like I can't. And I told the rheumatologist, I was like, I'm in more pain. She was like, well, like you can up the prednisone for a bit, but you're gonna have to go back down. I did that for a little. I went back to I went to 25, whatever. But it was I was like, I have to do something drastic because like I am not willing to go back to the state that I was in. And so I was like, well, I have to rule out the diet. Like if this could help, I'm gonna try. And so yeah, I read everyone's accounts of carnivore and it seems like the least reactive food is lamb to everyone for the most part. And so I was like, well, I'll do only lamb for 3 weeks at least and just kind of like see what happens. And yeah, so I ate only lamb for 3 weeks straight, which sounds nuts. And I was tired at the beginning because I went straight from like they say if you like can to transition slowly from like high carb to no carb. Yeah. But I was like, I'm desperate. So like I will take the whatever keto flu symptoms. I need the pain to end. And so yeah, I went right into it. I was tired, but I wasn't as tired as I thought I was going to be.
Your strength skyrocketed.
Yeah, I remember we had that.
I was shocked. I've never seen anything like that. And I figured it would be like a temporary boost, but when you started eating that way, oh my God, your reps, like your strength wasn't low to begin with, right? Like I know what a general, female strength ranges are. I was like, the hell?
Yeah, that was a fun part because I was like actually tired, but you were like, whoa. And I was like, wow, I could still do things in the gym.
Oh, yeah.
On like day 5, I hated lamb. Like I was just like, this is awful. But then what happened, and this is what I think has like shown me through the whole time, was like on day 7, suddenly that dramatically changed. And all I wanted to eat was lamb fat. And I was just like, I had the butcher giving me like free scraps of lamb fat. And I was just like, I was air frying it. Like right now, I'm like, oh, the thought of this is like, I couldn't do it. But like for that, like the first month, I was just like, give me all of the fat. I was picking up bags of fat. I was air frying it and just eating the fat.
Like I thought you were insane.
They did. They called me the lamb fat lady. They were like, here's the lamb fat lady. But it was like, and what was wild to me was that like I don't have any cravings now. So now I'm like maybe like 3 months and a week, 3 months and 2 weeks in, maybe like 3.5 months into carnivore. And I don't have any cravings now. For the first month, I had some like I was like, oh, I really wanted lemon. I was like, it would be really nice to have any sort of flavor. Cause like I cut out everything because I just wanted to rule out like I don't know. I don't think that diet, for me at least, is like the sole contributor to everything. But I do think that like it's the most controllable tool, you know, like we can work on the nervous system and stuff, but it's like that's a long process. Whereas like with my diet, I can just remove all this stuff that like could cause a problem and just see. I will say what was encouraging was like I started to feel just really satiated. My life with food became way easier because before I had been hungry like every 2 or 3 hours. I was like, I have to eat something else. And before bed, I was like, oh, I have to eat. And like this was like, oh, I'm full and I can eat like 3 meals a day and not be starving in between. And like everything became, it took some weeks to like adapt, but like I was like, wow, my life, I thought it would be so miserable and stressful. And I was like, my life just became way easier. And also with being in more pain, even though I love cooking, like I loved spending lots of time cooking, it was a lot easier to not have to spend time cooking. Like I just didn't have to do any of that. And I added beef in on week 4, mostly just to make my life easier. I didn't even really like it when I added it back in. I was like, lamb is better. But I wanted to be able to eat out at all. And so like a couple times I've had steaks out and that like in a nice steakhouse, you can like be very clear to make it with absolutely nothing. And when we traveled, I ate a lot of Wendy's burger patties because they make their patties with only like beef and salt.
Good to know. Okay.
No oil. Yeah, so I'm like, I'm sure it's not the best meat in the world, but like they don't add things. So I was fine with those. I ate so many. It was gross. Like we would get Wendy's patties like 20 at once.
Oh my God.
And then we would freeze them and I would like take them with us during the day so they'd like defrost. So I'd be at the airport like eating like cold defrosted Wendy's patties.
So this is what I want to talk about because you're kind of at the extreme end of the spectrum in terms of what you're doing. But I love what you said is that nutrition is at least something controllable because we've talked about, you know, capacity and the pain bucket is the way that it was described to me from another therapist. It's like you've got, because the nervous system is a longer road and it's also like things keep happening, right? Like life is happening that will cause you stress. So we can't put you in bubble wrap. I say like I can't bubble wrap you. I can't protect you guys from everything that's happening. But what we can do is try to control the variables of like, okay, is the nutrition causing inflammation? Well, let's reduce some of that inflammation with that variable so we can decrease the accumulation in your pain bucket so you're not overflowing all the time and having these symptoms. Continue working on the nervous system, the movement aspect, sleep, right? Things of that nature. You started taking, I know, vitamin D and things like that, although recently you took it out, I want to say, because
I'm about to take it out. I'm going to stop it when I stop the prednisone to just have a break from everything else, like everything besides food.
To get a clear slate. So healing isn't always linear, right? I always say with chronic pain, regardless of autoimmune disease or not, when something's chronic, like there's sometimes like the ups and the downs. So we always like to look at the overall picture, right? Of where somebody started, you know, being able to go to the gym, going hiking, going up and down stairs, being able to move around. And then still in that you're still going through the process of learning, like what else do I need? What else is here? And that you're seeking out other professionals to help you with it, because it especially in the healthcare system, I don't want to poo-poo so hard in the healthcare system. I worked in the healthcare system, but I feel like since I do have that experience in there coming out, you know, after being in there about 7-8 years, I like to be an advocate for my clients of like, again, you know, be careful with who you hire, ask questions. There are good professionals out there. You might have to pay cash out of pocket instead of going with insurance, because usually the insurance model, it's kind of like, just get them through. Well, I don't know, this is protocol. We put you on the prednisone, we taper. That's all I've got, right?
Yeah.
That you're doing a lot of your own research, which is really important. It can be exhausting. But we're so lucky to be in the age of information where you're able to reach out to these people and see things and to give you hope and, you know, strength to keep going. I fully believe that you can heal yourself. I don't have drugs.
Yeah, thanks. My husband says that too. He's like, you'll definitely heal.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I think that I'm like definitely on the right track. And yeah, I think like So I still have joint pain, obviously. Like I haven't like eradicated the RA at this point.
Mhm.
But I feel so like from carnivore itself, I've experienced enough benefits to like very much encourage me. Like I had a rash under my eyes. I don't think I ever told you this. It was like a weird dermatitis. I had it for like 6 months. After a month on carnivore, it was just gone. It hasn't come back. I lost weight that I definitely needed to
Oh,
lose.
yeah.
Yeah, I've lost like 24 pounds now and like
Well, we had talked about that too, the before and after pictures too, the significance and kind of it's almost like the quality of the weight you lost too. Like you could see that a lot of that inflammation and that swelling was coming down.
yeah.
Like it looked like your body was healthier. Now, we look at people, oh, if they're thinner, then they're healthier, right? It wasn't that. It was like this difference. I
Yeah.
can't really describe it, but I remember thinking that. And also, of course, you put on muscle is one of the first things I noticed. I was like, look at her legs.
Yeah, I'll say as to anyone, a great side benefit of working with you has been that my butt is so I'm like, my butt looks great. I'm like, was not like my main goal of working together, but it's like, yeah, Jordan took a photo of my butt. I was like painting in my underwear the other day and he like took a photo and showed it to me and I was like, that's me. I was like,
Yep.
wow. So yeah.
Because you're doing actual training. Like that's what I really love about this work too. Like we started you slower, right? We needed to get your range of motion back in the knee. We needed to get the inflammation, the pain down. We needed to create safety and movement, right? On a brain level. Because I remember like you were super nervous about extending that knee because your brain was like, is this safe? Can I really extend? And we just had a super, super normal. We just had to work at your pace and to make sure we weren't pushing too quickly. So we started slow, but then, now, like you said, you're doing hangs, right? For a while. We sometimes have to taper because of the elbow,
Yeah.
but and the wrist.
My longest dead hang was like 45 seconds.
That's a long time for a female. Like
Yeah.
that is some work. So we started incorporating overhead presses. You're doing rows, cable rows we were having you do. You were doing lat pull downs. You were doing the Smith machine deadlifts because that's what we had in the gym. But then now you're doing the kettlebell deadlifts.
Yeah.
Working on doing some step ups, and you were doing single leg deadlifts for a period of time too. And we keep waving them in. Floor presses, you're doing with like 20 pounds. You probably could do 25 pounds.
Yeah.
Which is a solid strength. So just pointing that out is like, I call it therapeutic strength. So what you're doing is a really good example of that, is that you're doing strength training, like you're in the gym working, but it's also therapeutic. Like it's also helping you physically and mentally, you don't feel like you're incapable.
Yeah. And like something that has been so good for me with it is not only is it's like fun to feel like I'm doing real things again, but also I know that I'm adding muscle, which I know is just only going to help me with my health long term.
Yep.
Like I'm not that old. I'm about to turn 32, but I'm just like at the age where I'm sort of like, I need to put on muscle now. Cause like, if I want to be able to move later, I want like, it does matter now. And I know I had so much muscle years ago and I'm like, I wish that I was able to keep that and I didn't. And so, I think it just feels really encouraging to me, like us being able to add weights and stuff. I'm like, this is like so good for me. Like I just feel grateful that I'm able to do enough stuff that we can add muscle.
Yep.
Like even if the stuff that I'd love to do is like out of range at the moment, it's like at least I can do things where we can add weight and like put some muscle on my body because I know that that's just like so good.
And we see it, and then we've been tracking. And actually, when you said that, I took notes this morning. I just took a class this morning for my CEUs on aging, and I was like, God, this is depressing. And it was like it was 3-hour class on like everything about what happens when we age. And I wrote some note somewhere. We can get a 10 to 15% loss of strength every single decade when we don't exercise. Our strength naturally declines that much, starting as young as 30. So our strength naturally declines 10 to 15% every decade if we're not training. Like it's that important. And I didn't realize it was that big, because we think, oh, 30s, 40s, still pretty young. But when we don't train, and that's why I'd said too, even when like things are a little bit flared because of the RA, movement can still be really therapeutic. It's usually not moving is very rarely the answer.
Yeah.
Usually get some movement in, find the exercises that you can do, and just keep the process going, you know?
Yeah, that's been a big learning for me of just of trying to like not push myself too much, but push myself somewhat, just kind of
Yep.
learn like where's my capacity? What do I like? I think that's just an ongoing thing.
And
The other,
sometimes maintain too is another thing. Is sometimes, right, we're kind of like, we're in a little
yeah,
maintenance phase. Sometimes when you're lowering the prednisone, it's like, we'll change a couple variables here and there. But I think that's important to note too, because people think strength is linear. It's like, well, I got to keep adding weight on the bar. I got to keep like, or I'm failing or I'm regressing. And
yeah,
it's just not true, because they're thinking long picture is you want to minimize excess stress, right? And make sure that you're still in the game week after week.
yeah. And that was something we did in September a lot because I was going on like a 2-week trip and
Yep.
I was like, I really think like we need September to be about just staying stable and like I don't want to go. I was so nervous to go on this trip and like I was like, what if I like have a big flare? Like I can't, like I don't know. It was scary, and because I was like, there's gonna be all these stressors, new environments, new people, new just all this stuff, and no sleep and time zone change, and I was like so glad. Like the trip went so great, and I was able to just stay and like I danced at the we went to a wedding and I danced at the wedding and my knee hurt a little the next day, but I was like, wow, I like fully could dance and like
For hours.
for hours. It was fun and I had so much fun and I was just like, wow, like yeah. I think too another thing the diet has helped with is like my energy levels are pretty stable. And so like other than like sometimes when I decrease the prednisone, I have a few days of like feeling more tired or whatever. But in general, like I think because of the RA, I haven't yet experienced like some people on Carnivore talk about like superhuman energy. I would not say I have that, but I definitely have like consistent energy. Whenever I eat a meal, I feel the same after I eat the meal as I did before. Maybe to a lot of people that would be like normal, but to me, that's like a brand new world. It just feels like like I'm gonna eat and I'm not gonna like crash. I'm not gonna have stomach issues. I'm not gonna like anything. I feel literally the same as I did before I ate. And that's cool. That's like a nice feeling. And I feel happy. And this might also be like the nervous system work, this like a bunch of stuff, but like I am so happy like pretty much every day. Like I end the day being like, wow, that was such a great day. I'm so excited for tomorrow. I'm just like so happy about my life. And to be able to feel that while still like being in pain is like weird.
That might be a good place to end there too. And I was like, we've been talking for like 45 minutes. I was like, oh, maybe like 20, 30 minutes.
There's a lot to say.
There's a lot to say on this. I love that point because, oh my God, we do this all the time with all sorts of things, right? It's like, once I get to this thing, then I'll be happy. Once I achieve that thing, once I get out of pain, then I can do all these things. And it's true, the pain, illness are definitely limitations. Like that is for sure. But you're finding ways to find joy in it. And I think also the other thing is you feel like you have some sense of autonomy and empowerment in it. You're making these choices. You're feeling more in control. You just painted your room this beautiful purple color. You know, you're like creating your space. You're still living. You're building your relationship, you know, your marriage and growing your life in so many ways. So I love that. I think we had talked about that just a few days ago in your session. I was like, how are you feeling just in general? And you said, wow. And she's like really happy. Like both can exist, right? In trauma therapy, we often talk about, my teacher would call it the purple. Ironically, you're in a purple room. He would talk about it in the purple is that we have the red, the trauma, which could be like the pain. We can orient to the red things, the stress, the pain, the trauma. And then we have the blue, which are the things that are positive and make us happy. But life is in both. Like life is the red and the blue. And how do we handle it? And how do we, you know, stay resilient in the face of stress, pain, unknowns? And I think you've done a really excellent job at that. Like I would say you're way above what most people are willing to commit themselves to, because it's a really deep form of self-care, really. And like, you care about yourself. You're like, this is important to me.
Yeah.
You know, and your journey isn't any better or less than somebody else if they choose to have medication, right? And like,
Yeah.
that's what they want to do. There's no right or wrong. People can choose medication all the way, work with that the rest of their life. Great. As long as it feels good for you, right? And like, this is the path that felt in line for you. I'm like, okay, my job as the coach to be supportive.
There was this piece of that, of like, honestly, I came to this reckoning with myself of like, I would choose, like, even if I, worst case scenario, like ended up in a wheelchair, but I at least tried like everything I could. That matters more to me personally than like not like going, like taking them as doing a whole other path and like never having tried. Like,
Right.
for me, that, and so kind of coming to terms with that in myself and just being like, this is just how I am, and like, I am willing to make this choice was a big deal, I think, for me. Because like, everyone has their own journey and like has to choose for them. And it's like easy to compare yourself to other people's and being like, well, they're doing this, and they're like, it's like, well, these are like my values, and because of that, I just have to like be on the path that feels right for me. And if I'm not, I'll be miserable no matter what happens.
1,000,000%.
But before we end, I feel like, can I say some things about you? Can I just like tell? Because I feel like I just want to like make it very clear that without working with you, like working with you has so dramatically changed my life. Like, without working with you, I don't know that I would have been able to walk again. Like, I think I would have I definitely would have gotten the surgery. It probably wouldn't have done everything because of the RA. I would have gone to some physical therapist who probably wouldn't have helped that much. Like, I would never be in the gym like that. I'm able to do this stuff now in the gym. There was this point, Jordan like hired a trainer, and he's been working with him, and he said something the other day about like, they're like new to working with each other, and he's like, oh, he like showed me something today, and I was like, okay, like, you really know your stuff, I can just trust you. And I was like, that is what I feel like. I felt that with you. Like, I think it takes some time to build like trust with a person, but there was a point early on where I was like, she knows way more than I do. She's like gonna help me here, and I can just like trust her to tell me what to do and do it. And to be able to do that, and like, yeah, I just feel so grateful for you. And I feel like you have such a complex range of trainings and like experiences that work so beautifully together in a way that's extremely unique and like is not easily found. And so I just feel really lucky that I even like knew who you were and that we were like connected online. And I feel so like, I'm like, sometimes I'm like, wow, we've been working together for almost a year. And I'm just like, this is like the best money I spend. I'm just going to keep doing it until you're like one day, like, oh, I'm not doing one-on-one anymore. Or, like, I'm whatever. I'm like, I'm just going to keep, I was like, it like so quickly has become such a part of my life that I'm like, I don't care what this like, I'm just going to pay for this because it is beneficial to me. And like, it has to fit into my life because like, this handles that part of my life so much better than I could handle it myself. And so I just want to like make that very clear to people, even though I'm like, well, I can't. I'm like, well, what if she gets too many clients and then she doesn't have any time for me anymore?
Well, a lot of my clients, they've stayed on for year after year. And I always emphasize, it's not because it's taking so long to get a level of results. Usually I say clients will see results in 2 weeks, but it's because there's layers to this. And then it's like, well, I want to keep doing this because, you don't have to think about your program. You don't have to be worried about things. And then there's always these life transitions that happen too. So I'm not going anywhere. I love doing private work. So I'm not going anywhere. And that's why I also like to put you guys on month to month, like where it's like, if you want to continue, keep continuing. I don't want to force anybody to work together if, you don't want to, or something's not working. Yeah, I love the private work, and thank you for all that. I am very grateful. I got a lot of experience working in physical therapy with a lot of patients and my teachers. That's why it's funny when people compliment my work. I'm like, I want to compliment all my teachers because I learned so much from my colleagues, from brilliant therapists, chiropractors, that I'm able to deliver it, and do my best. And I love this work, and it's very rewarding. So thank you for trusting me. That's like at the core of this work too. When I'm teaching other professionals, I'm like, you have to build the trust and rapport. And it's earned, right? Like I can't just assume you're going to trust me, even though you pay me. I have to continually earn that trust and make sure that you feel safe and,
Yeah. And I feel you're also very good at like building toward, like, it's fun to kind of set new goals and be like, okay, now I'd like to be able to do this soon. And kind of, I think that was a thing early on too, that I was like, wow, like, yeah. Cause I think right at the beginning, I still had some like, well, I like have done fitness and I like know things and I know what, I just have to go to the gym and do it. Like I know what to do. And I had to like kind of be like, no, I don't. Like there was a point where I was like, I know some things, but I don't actually know how to help myself. Like I don't, it's much better for me to hand this over to somebody else who's like an expert at this. And there was just some times I remember early on where like it became very clear. It would like become clear to me in a workout, like what you had been doing like weeks prior to sort of build to that point. And I was like, oh, and I was like, okay, Jess is really smart. I'm just going to like let her do it. And
I want you guys to see that. I want you guys to see those patterns too, because eventually, when you guys, I say fly off, fly out and do your own thing. I want you guys to have this. It's like you're learning different skills, and I'm educating you guys on why we're doing things, that you understand that like what we're doing is not random. It's very like, okay, this is why we're doing this. This is why we're doing that. This is why we're not doing that. So that you have a better understanding of your body too, and that you feel, that you're learning things, that you're not. I never want you guys dependent on me. That's very important to me, to build self-sufficiency. It's always like, I want you guys to learn too, and then you feel like, then you can really choose, and you're like, you know what, I like to hand this over. I hire my own coaches because it also frees up so much mental bandwidth. You don't have to think about what you're doing. I provide it for you. You know why, and you can trust it and follow it. So,
it's huge.
That's great. Thanks. This was it's like 20-30 minutes, but I thought that was fantastic because like you said, there was a lot to cover. I really wanted to have this also give other people hope, because again, it can feel really isolating, and sometimes in like peer support groups for autoimmune or chronic pain, they can be really Debbie Downers in there. It can almost be hurtful to go into those.
I tried a couple different things, and I won't go into them, but I'll just like, there are some very depressing places.
Very depressing. Yep. I learned from my clients, and I was like, well, maybe like try like a Facebook group or this or that. And they're just like, Jess, they're all just.
Do you know, I will just say, like on Reddit, like in like rheumatoid arthritis, autoimmune threads, you're not even allowed to post. Like it's against the rules to make a post that's like, these are things that have naturally helped me.
Whoa.
It says like, if anything isn't medically like scientifically backed up, like it's against the rules. You can only post. So it like really creates these weird, it's like, unless the doctor is okay with, like agrees with everything you say, you can't post. So it's like there are other communities you can find, but like, I've like worked, now I like have a therapist and another guy who like they've healed their autoimmune stuff. So like I've found other like supports and groups and stuff of people like, there's so many podcasts. Like it's been important to listen to things and listen to stories and be like, okay, this is common. This actually happens like to a lot of people. It's possible. But yeah, there's a lot of very depressing.
Reddit. I don't even have a Reddit account, but I didn't
until I started Carnivore. Now
I didn't think they would censor that much, but that's
not Reddit itself. It's the mods. It's like the moderators of the subreddit. they get full control.
It just continues to perpetuate the idea that the doctor is always right. And I wrote a post recently after our conversation, another conversation with a client where she was in the hospital for a while. And it's like, well, what if one doctor says this and another doctor says that? Then who's right? If the doctors are always the authority, they are also human beings. And I'm saying, like, I've been friends with doctors, like they're my own clients, they're my colleagues in the healthcare world. So like
Doctors
they're not like
share the same opinion.
Exactly. Like and there's different research that one person's looking at versus the other. So take the information in, listen to the people that you're hiring for your care, but always, I'm so big. I'm like, always be discerning. I tell my clients, I'm like, challenge me if you want to, ask me questions. Like I'm an open book on that sort of thing. That's one of my values is, you know, independence and autonomy. So I think we should wrap this up because it's an hour. But I will share this somewhere on the socials. Thank you so much for doing this. I think that was a lovely gesture of you asking. I always feel uncomfortable asking my clients, like, do you want to spend your time doing a video testimonial? But this is lovely. I learned some other things about you. So is there anything else you want to add? I think we covered everything. Okay, I'm gonna stop our recording, and yeah, you guys are welcome to ask questions as well in the wherever I post this. Maybe you'll try. Well, you don't have social media, but I'll kind of try to answer.
I'm not on, but yeah, I can, like, if you want, I can give you my email. Like, you could give my email if anyone has like specific questions. I could direct them maybe to something if they want.
Yeah, because my sister was a great resource too, actually, with autoimmune. That, yeah, just, yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you guys for watching, and we're signing off.